So a lot of you, it sounds like you do the escorting or did the escorting. There's the ranch work. Have any of you done, I don't know what the appropriate term is, like street walking?
Yes.
No.
I coach a lot of street walkers.
On how to street walk?
No, on women who have done that and now are transitioning out and wanting to know like what's going on with them.
So no.
Yeah, I did.
Was that when you at the start or?
It was in the quarantine. Okay. I walked the streets of Reno, and
the streets of Reno.
Yeah, and I remember at the time, like I felt like, I don't know, I was kind of like, rock and roll, like I was kind of like wild, and I had this trench coat, this black trench coat, and I'd walk the streets with my trench coat. I'd go down to San Diego. Trench coat, black trench coat.
I had black. The typical?
That was my typical. Yeah, I had a
fishnets.
No fishnets. I had black leather pants, and then I had this black trench coat, and I had this dark eye makeup on.
Were there specific streets that you can go to where it's kind of known?
Downtown San Diego. I did.
This was in San Diego.
In San Diego,
so
I did.
You're just a character in the Matrix.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was. It's so funny because there's actually a hooker in Grand Theft Auto, and at the time, because I had dark hair, she looked like me exacly.
I was gonna say best
so
GTA life right over there.
Yeah.
You'd just be walking, and someone would like pull up in the car, and be like, "What? How's the process go? Walk me through it."
So they would typically, I never got in cars, but typically it would be people walking like on the street. So I would be walking like around the corners or anything, or kind of going in and out of like 7-Elevens or something. Yeah. And they'd walk and say, "Hey, where are you going?" I was like, I don't know. Where are you going? And then, and then they'd say, "Oh, well, we're going back to Buddy's place." I was like, "Oh, okay, what do you do?" Like, and try to vet them. And then they're like, "Oh, well, would you like to come up?" And and then that would be how it would go. And then sometimes I'd go into strip clubs, and I would sit in the strip club and like dressed up like as like in a really nice like outfit. And they were like, "Oh, do you work here?" And I'd be like, "I used to." And
oh wow, okay.
I'd pull them out, and I almost got banned from a club for doing that.
That's controversy with strippers and escorts coming in. It causes a lot of fights and like chaos. Yeah,
I had left with like a couple guys, and I think the club was starting to recognize it, and so I saw the owner just kind of lurking, and I was like, I better stop. And then I would go into my strip club. Yeah, it turned out when I was dancing, I would go into my strip club, and I would go with the intent of pulling someone out within an hour.
That's also
like I would do that too. But then I was just like, but then that's what led to the
it's like behind enemy lines type of shit.
Yeah, and I had the trench coat. I would always wear the trench coat
because the trench coat.
Always the trench coat.
So you'd be walking down was it like a specific street? And you said downtown San Diego.
Downtown, right by the bars.
And so. But like when the guys would come up to you, and so did they? I assume that they knew that you were.
I think they were just trying to be friendly. They were just hitting on me.
So at what point in the conversation would you be like, "By the way, I charge X amount"?
Well, so they'd be like, "Where?" They would first say, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just, I don't know, might be headed home." And then, "Where are you going?" And then they'd be like, "Oh, well, if you want to," and I was like, "I don't know," and they'd be like, "I'll take care of you." Like usually they would say something. It could have been the trench coat.
Not to interrupt, but it's when I moved to Los Angeles, I was shocked at the level of prostitution that was happening because where I came from, it was like very looked down upon to escort if you were dancing and whatnot. When I came, like you'd be surprised at how many people just know. Like it's so normalized, it's wild.
Okay.
I think it just had the vibe too.
Because but at least for your situation, I mean, if you're in these environments, like you said, you'd go out in the nightlife district or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
it's an expectation almost. Like people just know that there's gonna be hookers there.
Oh.
And I think like the way I looked at them too, like I'd look at them a certain way, and then they'd be like, I'd like look at them.
What's the look?
Show me the look.
Ooh. Okay.
I can't do it. I get
look into this camera right here.
I think everyone's an escort though. That's
this camera.
Oh, that camera. Like, I don't know. I'd look at him a certain way. I don't know how that works.
I'm a little frightened.
I a little frightened. I try to just lock them in, like, like.
Because, but if you're out in, like, a nightlife district, couldn't these guys just be coming up to you and not know you're a prostitute and they're just hitting on you? And
they could. And so I would deny them once. So you deny them once. And then after you deny them, they'd try to be like, "Oh, well, are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. Well, what if I, took care of you a little bit?" And then that's when I knew that.
Oh, they would say that.
Yeah. So you'd knock them down.
It would never occur to me if I'm like trying to hit on a girl and I don't know
Well, then
like,
then you'll meet people who
I mean-
like it's not a thing, and so like you'll proposition them, and they'll be like, "What the hell?"
then
or,
again, I've never.
Yeah, it's not like-
propositioned
Or
They would
I've been
proposition me.
I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
propositioned before, and I'm like, "What the hell?" Like that's what happened to me when
Yeah.
I first moved to LA. I was
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I don't know if I." Can
No, it's
curse.
fine. It's fine.
But I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not this. Like, I'm not an escort. You know, it's very, very, very normalized.
Okay.
Like uncomfortably normalized.
Okay. I see.
Certain
get
So
it?
you've
Yeah.
never done
Certain
like the
cities.
car
Cities.
comes up thing?
No, because
Pulls up?
I didn't want to get trapped in a car with
Okay, I
someone.
see.
I've had cars.
But where would you go then?
We've all watched Monster.
Oh, they would. We'd go to a hotel. I'd say, "Can you book a hotel room?" And they'd say, "Yeah." And then they'd book it really quick, and then they would do it. And these were in my my wilder days.
Wilder days.
when
Okay.
I was rock and roll.
So how does that conversation look? Like, okay, some dude
Yeah.
walks up, he knows you're an escort.
Yeah. I'd be like,
What's the
"Are you the guy or
are you a
Oh yeah. Okay.
She just told you. What
okay.
the conversation?
It's
you-
like you gotta pay to play. That's
Wait, no,
what it is.
I would just say, okay, well, I mean, he would pretty much proposition. He'd say, oh, well, if I take care of you, and I'm like, you know, you got we could do for X amount if you get a hotel, and he'd be like, all right,
okay.
and just book it right there on his phone, and then we'd walk up together. I'd see, and then I'd leave.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And have you two done any?
I've never no.
What about?
I have the first time I ever got paid.
Okay.
My girlfriend flew me to Hawaii, and it's very known there. I don't know if it is right now.
Yeah,
There's
they
a
used to
couple
have a lot
streets
of, I think, yeah.
that everybody walks, and it used to just be, it would be regular girls like me, just young girls, and then there was a lot of, I don't want to use the wrong word, you guys.
Well, if they're not
Oh
regular
my
girls,
gosh.
what are
Hookers.
they?
I mean,
I call them vanilla.
they were sex workers, but I don't like to say that word either.
It's okay.
Courtesans.
Hose?
Own it.
Oh, you guys,
Hose?
this
Just
is
own
really
it.
hard.
Yeah. Just
Okay,
say
they
the
were
word.
men dressed as females.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Cross-dressers.
Yeah,
That's-
I don't want to
Okay.
say even that because
Yeah.
it offends a lot of people. But we called them trannies.
Okay.
And so
Back in the day.
there was a major
Back in the
competition
day.
too, by the way. But I only did that for about 2 weeks because I never jumped in a car. So that would have
cars.
freaked me out.
No cars.
We
Yeah.
would just meet Japanese men, and we would say "asobini ikimashou iko," and they would get their hotel.
Okay.
It means, would you come and play with me? Come have fun with me.
okay,
Asobi.
all right.
You know,
Sounds like a
ikimashou,
song.
let's go. And so that I learned how to speak Japanese, and
Oh,
we would not
okay.
go with white guys.
Oh.
Any other race, but I know this sounds so bad, you guys,
No,
but
run it.
only Japanese men.
Only the
That
Japanese.
makes
Because-
perfect
That's
sense.
it. That's
They were the
okay.
safest. This is the way I was taught by the people that I knew back then. My girlfriend, my best friend, her girl that turned her out, that was the way the clientele were because they had a lot of money. It was the 80s. Whoa, the 80s.
Yeah.
We, as United States, were doing really, really well in the late 80s. So the Japanese men had a lot of money. The first date I ever turned was with my girlfriend, and I literally took my clothes off, and the guy was done. I was like,
Okay.
that's how I got hooked into sex work because,
You're like, oh.
$500, there was no agency fee, and I was like, this is way too easy because I was making $3.47 an hour, at my normal job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this does not compete at all. Like,
What's-
this is a no-brainer. I'm
Can we do
quitting
an
my
inflation
job.
check? What was
Yeah.
500 in the 80s?
It's double
Did you
it.
adjust for
Wow.
inflation?
Double it.
About double.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's about double.
1,500.
You're making 500 back then, 1,000. It
1,000,
would
yeah.
be 1,000. Okay. All right.
And it was so tempting to just stay in that space. So
Did they pay in yen ever? It was always,
yeah, a lot. And
lot
we
of
would
times
we
in
would
yen.
we would know what the yen was. So
Okay.
for 100, typically it was 100,000 yen.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So 1 million yen was like 1,000.
see.
During the rates.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
it was, you guys, it was so, and I don't know about any of you ladies, your thoughts, because for me, I'm just going to be blunt and honest. I was after the money. Bottom line, dollar, make me holla. That's
What-
all it was.
What-
At that time,
Like, you are a man that is dumb enough to pay for sex. This is what my thoughts were because I
Yeah.
was really angry at men back then.
Oh.
I remember we
Yeah.
talked about this last time, Brian. I was so like embittered towards men, so I was like, if I can charge them, yes.
So you're
It's
revenge.
been-
That is
empowering.
happening right now. And yes, it was empowering.
It's, well, that's,
Okay.
yeah.
And I felt really like, actually made me happy to be able to control men's pockets with my looks.
Yeah.
It was very addicting.
It's a
For me, I wanted the sex and I wanted like the intimacy. Like
I was
loved-
an nymphomaniac too.
I wanted like to be, I didn't feel safe like in my waking life. And I felt like when I was intimate with someone, I felt really safe. And I was like, oh, this is comforting. But then there's also money, which helps me out. So I would kind of like linger a little while when I'd see him, and then I'd be like, all right, well, I better get going. Like, you know,
Call me.
yeah. And then,
my coach
and then
line
that's
is going off.
yeah.
I'm like, what you're actually we're seeking was safety.
Yeah,
And
safety.
that's the
Yeah,
underlier
I would spend the
desire.
night
Yeah.
sometimes at their places because I wanted to be with them. I was like, I feel safe here. I'm getting fed. I'm, you know, this is nice. You know.
So